The night of August 6th, 2011, it was near midnight. A military helicopter flew through the dark skies of Afghanistan. Inside sat 38 people, America's best special forces, Afghan soldiers, and experienced pilots. They were heading to a dangerous mission. But you might not believe this. Only a few minutes later, that helicopter turned into a fireball and crashed in a mountain valley. 30 American Special Forces members were killed. This was the worst incident in the history of the US Navy SEALs. This is the story of Operation Red Eagle Wing, the night that changed the history of the war in Afghanistan forever. Now let's see how it all turned into a catastrophe. So let's get into who was actually sitting in this helicopter and why this incident was so shocking. You should know that the US Navy SEALs, known as SEAL Team 6, are considered the best special forces in the world. These individuals train for years, pass the world's toughest exams, and only the elite can join this team. On the night of August 6th, 2011, 38 people boarded this helicopter. 30 of them were American soldiers, including 17 from SEAL Team 6, 5 other Navy Special Warfare personnel, 3 from the Air Force, a military working dog specialized in bomb detection, and 5 crew members. There were also 7 Afghan soldiers with them and 1 Afghan interpreter. You might not believe it, but some of these soldiers were part of the same team that had participated in a very famous mission just 3 months earlier. Which mission? The mission where Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, was killed in Pakistan. That's right. Some of these soldiers were American national heroes. They were the ones who found and eliminated the world's most dangerous terrorist. But on this flight, they were heading to a different mission. This time, the target was a Taliban commander who had taken refuge in a mountain valley in Wardak province, central Afghanistan. Intelligence suggested this commander was targeting American forces in the area and needed to be neutralized. The type of helicopter used was a Chinook. This is one of the largest and most powerful military helicopters in the world. It has 2 large rotors, can carry up to 55 people, and is ideal for night operations in the mountains. But with all its power, it has one major weakness. It is vulnerable to shoulder-fired missiles. Now imagine this all-star team with this powerful helicopter entering one of the most dangerous regions of Afghanistan, and none of them knew they would not be coming back alive. This operation was part of a larger war. In the summer of 2011, the Taliban was regaining strength in Afghanistan. Despite the presence of thousands of American and Allied soldiers, the Taliban remained strong in rural and mountainous areas, conducting constant attacks. Wardak province in central Afghanistan was one of the Taliban's strongholds. This area is full of deep valleys, high mountains, and remote villages that are very difficult to control. But the Taliban used these areas to shelter its commanders, store weapons, and plan attacks. On the night of August 6th, intelligence arrived that a senior Taliban commander named Qari Tahir, along with several of his fighters, had gathered in a village in the Tangi Valley in Wardak. This commander was responsible for several attacks against American and Afghan forces and was considered very dangerous. The American command decided to act quickly and send a special forces team to capture or neutralize this commander. But there was a big problem. The valley where the commander was located was very narrow and deep. Helicopters couldn't land easily, and the only way was to drop the soldiers from the air or land nearby. You might not believe it, but this type of operation is extremely dangerous. Why? Because when a helicopter flies low and slow in a narrow valley, it becomes an easy target for the enemy. The Taliban knew this, which is why they always kept man-portable anti-aircraft missiles ready in mountainous areas. Before the flight, American commanders conducted a quick review. They monitored the area with drones and saw a few Taliban fighters in the village. But they missed something. The actual number of enemies was much higher than they thought. And worst of all, the Taliban was waiting. Around 2 a.m., the Chinook helicopter lifted off from the airbase. Inside sat 38 people, all ready for battle. But none of them knew they were flying into a trap. The Chinook helicopter was moving at a relatively high speed toward the target area. The flight from the base to the valley took about 30 minutes. Inside the helicopter, the soldiers sat quietly, some doing final equipment checks, others lost in thought. As the helicopter neared the target area, the pilot began to reduce altitude. The valley was narrow, mountains rose high on both sides, and the night was dark. Only the helicopter's night vision lights showed the way. But right at that moment, the Taliban made their move. Taliban fighters, positioned on the mountains surrounding the valley, readied their man-portable anti-aircraft missiles. These missiles, like Stingers or RPG-7s, are simple shoulder-fired weapons, but they are deadly. One missile hitting a critical part of the helicopter is enough to end everything. You might not believe it, but the Taliban had only a few seconds. The helicopter was moving fast, and they had to fire at the exact right moment. One of the fighters placed the launcher on his shoulder, aimed, and fired. The rocket flew toward the helicopter at high speed and struck the rear section, right where the engine and tail rotor are located. The explosion was horrific. The engine exploded, the rotor failed, and the helicopter lost control. The pilot tried to control the aircraft, but it was impossible. The helicopter began to spin, then plummeted downward. Inside, the 38 occupants had only a few seconds to understand what was happening. The sound of alarms, the pilot's shouts, and then silence. The helicopter hit the ground at high speed. A second explosion occurred, the fuel ignited, and the helicopter turned into a fireball. Flames engulfed the entire fuselage. Inside, no one survived. All 38 people, including 30 American soldiers, 7 Afghan soldiers, and 1 interpreter, were killed instantly. Other helicopters participating in the operation saw the explosion from a distance. They immediately called for help, but it was too late. When reinforcements arrived at the scene, they found only the burnt wreckage of the helicopter and charred bodies. Identifying the remains was extremely difficult. Some families never received the complete body of their loved one. This was the worst incident in the history of the U.S. Navy SEALs. 17 of America's best soldiers lost their lives in one night in a remote valley in Afghanistan. So what was the reaction of America and the world to this catastrophe? On the morning of August 7th, 2011, the news of the helicopter crash was released. The American media was in shock. This was the deadliest single-day incident for U.S. forces in Afghanistan. The soldiers' families began to receive the bitter news. Grief, sorrow, and anger were everywhere. The U.S. president at the time, Barack Obama, issued an official statement saying, "We lost our best today." These individuals were heroes who fought for the freedom and security of the world. But these words couldn't bring the 30 men back. You might not believe it, but the families of some of the soldiers were furious. Why? Because they believed the operation was poorly planned from the start. Why were 38 people packed into one helicopter? Why had the flight path been leaked to the Taliban? Why wasn't the area properly cleared? Subsequent investigations showed that several major mistakes had occurred. First, the intelligence about the exact number of enemies was incomplete. Second, the helicopter had passed through a high-risk route. Third, the Taliban had likely been tipped off about the operation beforehand. How? It was rumored that a spy or infiltrator in the Afghan army had leaked the information, but no one was punished. No commander was relieved of duty, and the operations continued. For the families, this was an injustice. They wanted answers, but no one provided them. One of the bitterest facts was that some of these soldiers had participated in the operation to kill bin Laden just 3 months earlier, becoming national heroes. Now they were dead, and the world was starting to forget them. As the media quickly moved on to the next story and this tragedy became just another statistic, in the aftermath of the tragedy, America held several memorial services. Flags were flown at half-staff, funerals were conducted with full military honors, and families received medals of honor. At the Navy SEALs base, a permanent memorial was built. On one wall, the names of all 30 American soldiers are engraved. Every year on August 6th, a memorial ceremony is held, and families gather to keep the memory of their loved ones alive. But here's an interesting point. The full list of these soldiers' names was never officially released. Why? Because some of them were members of top-secret operations, and the US government did not want their identities revealed. This meant that families couldn't even speak fully about their loved one's heroism. You might not believe this, but one of the soldiers killed was a military dog named Bartlett. This dog was trained to find bombs and mines and had saved the lives of many soldiers. He also died in this disaster and was counted as a hero. The bitter lessons we can learn from this tragedy are many. First, the war in Afghanistan was never simple. Even with the best equipment and soldiers, the Taliban was always a serious threat. Second, incomplete intelligence can lead to disaster. Third, true heroes are those who lay down their lives for others, even if no one knows their name. Today, more than 10 years have passed since this tragedy. Afghanistan is once again under Taliban control. American forces have left, and the question is, was this sacrifice worth it? Did the deaths of these 30 soldiers change anything? So what was the result of all this heroism, sacrifice, and bloodshed? We saw that on the night of August 6th, 2011, 30 American soldiers, 7 Afghan soldiers, an interpreter, and even a military dog lost their lives in a remote Afghan valley. This was the worst single-day incident for the US Navy SEALs. But there is a bitterer truth. This sacrifice changed nothing. The Taliban remained strong. The war continued. And finally, in 2021, the Taliban took control of Afghanistan again. Everything went back to square one. In my opinion, this is a tragedy within a tragedy. These soldiers gave their lives for a goal that was never achieved. Their families were left alone, and the world forgot them very quickly. But we must not forget. We must learn that war is not just statistics. War is about real people who have families, dreams, and lives. And when a policymaker makes a mistake, the ones who pay the price are these soldiers. You might not believe it, but some of the families of these soldiers are still trying to uncover the full truth. They want to know exactly what happened, who is responsible, and why their loved one had to die. The question is, did we learn from these mistakes? Have governments learned not to put the lives of their soldiers in danger so easily? The answer, unfortunately, is no, because history always repeats itself, and forgetting is easier than learning. In your opinion, was this sacrifice worth it? Should the war in Afghanistan have continued? Write your opinion in the comments,